Matthews, Bree Houston. It's crunch time.
It's crunch time here in Clarksville, Tennessee. Jeff Matthews, Bree Houston, once again in the studios of 91.9 FM. And we have a very special guest, a colleague up here, respectable person.
Woo!
Ashton Rich, ladies and gentlemen, in the studio with us.
And the crowd that we don't have goes
Respectable?
wild.
I'm respectable.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Only on days that end in a while, right?
That's right, exactly. That's what I like to hear. Ashton, so good to finally have you in the studio. How's your week going? It's been a wild week for sports.
Honestly, Dan Quinn got fired. So my week is going great.
Wow.
Pretty happy about it?
Very happy. I was watching Monday Night Football last night just thinking to myself, I want Louis Riddick as my next general manager.
That's pretty funny.
It's crazy. He jokes about this, but actually, for the whole season, he's been telling me this.
No,
the
I
whole time.
am fully committed to the Falcons going 0-16 and drafting Trevor Lawrence.
And he
wish.
He cries every Sunday.
Oh, wow.
But
I wouldn't go that far. They're manly tears. I wouldn't say they're crying.
Remember when Cowboys beat you guys week 1? That was a fun game.
Remember when? What are those remember wins?
Do you remember?
Oh.
Oh, wow.
You can sing. We didn't know you could sing.
Earth, Wind, and Fire reference there. But
That's
we
might
Jeff,
have you sing us out.
Please save us.
We might.
All right. We got to jump into some high school football. We'll finally get the show started. And we're going to pull up the graphic, follow along with us. It's been a wild week for football. Clarksville 55, Kenwood 38, Clarksville Northeast 40, Clarksville Northwest 7, Greenbrier 40, Cheatham County a big goose egg of 0, Lipscomb Academy 48, Rossview 21, Springfield 28, Montgomery Central 7. I got to say, some of these scores are hard to read. I mean, they are big difference in deficits.
Well, it's very hard to predict who's going to win these games at the high school level. It's any given Sunday, and it's just like some scores will shock you. Some scores are like, we expected that.
Right.
If we look back to the Mount Juliet game versus Rossview.
Why did she?
If we look to that game, we understand Mount Juliet, they come in, they're 5-0 coming into that game about 2 weeks ago.
For those who don't know, I graduated from Mount Juliet High School.
Did you?
I
did not know that.
Why do you think he was so offended when you brought it up?
I know. I'm just messing with it.
It's a heartbreaking
I
moment.
I just have to bring it up because, hey.
Bear pride.
Yeah, bear pride. But anyway, Rossview, no one expected them to win, so it's hard to predict these high school games.
That is true. We saw, I saw a post from Jimmy Troglin that week, another very respectable reporter here in the Clarksville area, called that the upset of the week. Was Rossview taking over Mount Juliet. I mean, a couple late touchdown passes by Rossview put them over, and Mount Juliet just didn't have enough time. But, I mean, that goes right to the point. I mean, it's unpredictable. Yeah. A lot of things are.
And the high school game's kind of always been like that in a way, is because there's not a lot of information out there
That's
about
one of the hardest
sports.
things. That's one of the hardest things is how to find information for high school football games.
And if you ask a fan, like if a fan of a certain team, they're going to go, oh, yeah, we're real good this year. We're going to go 12-0, and then they get beat by 40 every week.
I can tell you that Coach T has become my best friend.
Coach T's good.
Coach T is okay. So there's
following high school football.
There's two websites that I've used, and Coach T is one of them. The other one's Max Preps. I will be honest and say that Coach T, I feel like, does a better job of getting information onto the website. Max Preps just has its moments where I just can't find something.
They leave it up in the air.
They do, and the biggest issue is some of those websites are fan run, parent run. And sometimes that just doesn't work too well.
They're like Wikipedia.
Exactly, right? So you got to take some things, if you're ever looking at the stats section, you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt. Yeah. Because you really don't know what's being reported. But roster-wise, coach-wise, and all this other stuff that kind of comes with finding information, most of the time, 95% correct.
Yeah, they're okay. And anytime I've had to go out and cover a game and I've got a roster off Coach T, I always make it a good habit of going out and like finding a coach saying, hey, coach, is this roster good?
Right.
And they usually take a look at it. Most of the time they look at it and they're like, yeah, it's fine. And then I've got parents mad at me because, I called their son the wrong number. Or I called
Timmy's name is actually Johnny.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, don't get those names wrong.
Absolutely.
You will hear it from a parent.
Yes, you will.
Yes, you will. 100% of the time. We're going to jump over into the SEC world. SEC football has become kind of this weird entity. I mean, everyone loves SEC football. But during a pandemic, everyone loves SEC football. So let's bring up the graphic here, and we'll follow along. Texas A&M 41, Florida 38, South Carolina 41, Vanderbilt 7, Missouri 45, LSU 41, Georgia 44, Tennessee 21, Auburn 30, Arkansas 28. Now, a couple of games stand out to me. One is definitely the Texas A&M Florida game, the LSU Missouri game, and then, of course, just because we live here, Georgia-Tennessee game.
Yeah, I think Texas A&M really teed Tennessee up for a big one. I mean, if Tennessee were to come out and win that game, they would be first in the East for a long time. But, all credit to Jimbo Fisher. He gets his first big win as coach at Texas A&M. Florida kind of stumbling their toe a little bit there. But Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts are still – that offense is great. It's more the defense that needs to be worked out for Florida, in which that's not something we've said about Florida in years past.
That's a true statement. Now, Florida has been kind of picked to be one of the top contenders of this season. However, that defensive struggle is going to have to start picking things up if they want to make a run for whatever the playoffs might look like.
Yeah.
But let's jump into the LSU-Missouri game. LSU, defending the college football title from last year, has had its struggles all season long. I mean, granted, they've lost almost everyone on the offensive line.
Yeah, and LSU week 1 came out, and Mississippi State, KJ Costello put huge numbers up on them. And you were thinking, man, is this going to be what Mike Leach looks like in the SEC? And everyone was really excited for it. And then, the next two teams that played Mississippi State ran 8 people in a zone and 3 rush, and it was completely stopped. But LSU, like you said, graduated a lot on offense. No Clyde Edwards-Helaire, no Joe Burrow, no Justin Jefferson. They're still managing to manufacture points, but it's really been the defense that's the problem for LSU this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of Bree, Ashton, growing up in the sports world, we've all been sports fans for our whole lives. There's always been that saying, defense wins championships. You can score all the points in the world, but if you can't put a stop to them scoring points, it doesn't really matter that much.
It doesn't matter.
And I feel like we've seen defensive struggles on a lot of teams, pro and college football this season. I don't know if there's a specific reason as to why, but I just feel like this whole pandemic has just put a curse on defense.
Yeah, and I think it's got more to do with the offenses are getting better. Offenses.
That's a good point.
Rules are catering to them, yes, but offenses are finally starting to scheme ways to beat defenses instead of just saying, we've got a really good receiver, we're just going to throw to him 10 times. They are beating you in so many different ways nowadays.
One of the games that I would like to highlight, which, of course, we highlight the Tennessee and the UK game, and I really want to focus on this UK game. Mississippi, you talked about KJ Costello. Well, he just didn't have it this week. Mississippi 2, UK 24, and UK, they haven't done well this whole season, so they win a game, and it's like, man, did they win, or was Mississippi just not good? And KJ Costello, let me read off his stat line: 36 for 55, 0 touchdowns. He had 232 receiving yards, passing yards, 4 interceptions, 1 for a pick 6. So it's like, I don't know, like UK just every dog has his day type thing.
I guess so. I mean, but they had a strong outing against Mississippi State. I mean, they were playing well. Forced overtime at Ole Miss 2 weeks ago. I mean, you can make the argument that their defense is strong this year. You can make an argument that they're going to have to rely on their defense to just stop the opposing offense, and then just hope and pray that the offense is able to figure something out to put something on the board.
Yeah, and it really goes back to, like you said, Kentucky's offense. They are very run heavy. They rely on Terry Wilson and their running backs on the ground game, and they don't throw a lot. And it's came back and bit them against Ole Miss because Ole Miss, their high-powered offense, Lane Kiffin at the helm. But like you said with Mississippi State, that's the first time in Mike Leach's coaching career, his entire career, that his offense has not put up a single point in a game. 16 years, first time he's never put up a single point. So I think it's back to the drawing board for Mississippi State. Got to figure out a way to, if you're going up against 8 guys in coverage and 3 guys on the line and they're coming, why not hand it off every once in a while? I get Mike Leach is kind of like a runnings for nerds guy, but at some point, are you going to keep banging your head against a wall trying to throw against 8-man coverages, or are you going to give in and at least run the ball sometimes?
It's definitely a topic for discussion, but we'll have to get to it at a different time because we got to move on because we got a lot to cover. Going into the NFL world, starting off, Titans versus Bills, happening tonight, 6 p.m. Titans have been battling with COVID past, I think, 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
Last week, they opened the training facility on Wednesday. Sunday, reports of someone else testing positive, so then they didn't think that Tuesday's game was even going to happen because someone tested positive on Sunday. They closed facility down, but then they were able to have a practice on Monday with only players, coaches, and and trainers. I mean, just brutal COVID aura for the Tennessee Titans this past 2 weeks.
Everywhere. As of yesterday, no one tested positive, so the game is in Nashville. As of tonight, there was 24 people who tested positive, 13 players, 11 faculty or staff. So they just really it wasn't looking good for the Titans, but they will have a game tonight. What's interesting to me is that the Titans come into the game, matchup 3-0. The Bills come in 4-0. Someone's going to leave with an L.
That is a true statement. I'm excited to watch that game.
I am too. Josh Allen, I don't make it secret. I love Josh Allen.
Right.
He's been absolutely on fire this year.
Here we go.
15 touchdowns, only 4 turnovers.
Here
and
we
look,
go.
if you're the Titans, you got to think. You're missing Jeffrey Simmons. You're
Right.
missing Adoree Jackson. You're missing Kamala Correa. You're missing Corey Davis. You're missing so many guys. Taylor Lewan might not play. So I got to think, if I'm taking a team to win this game, it's got to be the Bills. They're healthier. To me, they're the much better offense. Obviously, where we are geographically, that may not be a popular statement, but I think it'll be a competitive game. I just think that the Bills are going to outlast them.
That's what I would say. I think it's going to be a very competitive game. I don't think this one's going to be like a stretched game at all. Like, I think that the scoring deficit will be, under a touchdown.
I'm excited that not the way it happened, but we get football 3 days in a row.
Oh,
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we get a break, and then Thursday right back to it.
I know. It's kind of fantastic. That's how I like to see it, but
TNF just on the other tee.
get out. Anyway,
that was corny.
Titans play tonight versus Bills, 6 p.m. Moving on, Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys. Oh, gosh. This one was hard. Andy Dalton gets his first playing opportunity as Dak goes down for the Cowboys. Pretty gruesome injury. He's out for season, had surgery the day of. What y'all's take?
If we start the injury itself is, horrible. We wish all the best to Dak and a speedy recovery. He's out for the season.
Absolutely.
But with Andy Dalton, if you remember, he was the quarterback to replace Colt McCoy in that 2009 national championship running when Colt got hurt. So he has experience in replacing, being the backup quarterback. Maybe this time, he'll step up and actually do something positive for the team. They won that night, so he has experience with being the first quarterback.
Dallas did win
Starting quarterback.
37-34. Andy Dalton started for the Bengals for many years, it felt like. Went to many playoffs. Didn't go far into playoffs. Kind of like a Cowboys story.
Mm-hmm.
So he's already used to how the Cowboys work. Able to get to the first round of playoffs and then lose. Ashton, if you're Andy Dalton and you have the franchise quarterback, literally, Dak Prescott is franchise tag.
They haven't paid him yet.
They haven't paid him yet, but he's the franchise quarterback. If you're Andy Dalton and you are in this position where, 1, you're still somewhat young. 2, you have experience. 3, you're kind of used to that pressure. What are you feeling right now if you're Andy Dalton?
I think you understand that it's ultimately still Dak's team. And
Right.
so you're coming in and you don't want to mess anything up. So I think for Dalton, I think he's going to be more of a game manager than he has been in his career. Like you mentioned, the boogeyman with Andy was that he never could get past the first round of the playoffs. They always ran into somebody or he had a bad game or something like that. But I think it's just going to be a heavy dose of Zeke.
Right.
And it's going to be kind of trying to right the ship a little bit on defense because the Cowboys' defense has been awful this year. It's not been good. It's unfortunate you guys are missing a lot of pieces on defense. And DeMarcus Lawrence, he's been getting pressures but hadn't been getting sacks. That's kind of been his thing for a couple years. But
they weren't supposed to. This was supposed to be a team that had strong offense, strong defense, strong special teams. I mean, all of it. This was supposed to be a Dallas Cowboys team that resembled the 90s Cowboys.
Yeah.
That resembled that strong defense, that resembled the top, 3 players in the NFL, Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and then CeeDee Lamb was supposed to be the new Michael Irving.
Mhm.
I mean, getting the number 88 is prestigious. Thank you.
There you go.
Use your words.
For the Cowboys. I mean,
Take your time.
those are kind of the expectations
Right.
for this season. Unfortunately, that's not what the Cowboys are giving.
But even though the Cowboys are 2-3, they're still first in NFC East. So
Only thanks to the Eagles tying with the Bengals.
there's still a chance.
The entire division's awful.
The NFC East, let me tell you this way. The NFC East, not one team will go to the Super Bowl. Better yet, not one of those teams will make it past the second round of playoffs. No,
I can
make it
agree
around
with
the
that.
first round of playoffs. I'd be willing to say Cowboys will win the division, unbiasedly, looking at it just how it is, and lose to probably Green Bay first round.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay, they've been turning it up this year,
Yeah,
too.
I can see
Undefeated
that
still.
they've had a great season so far.
Fantastic. We got to move on, though. Alex Smith, the Washington football team. I mean, one of those stories where, you can't just you look at the story and you just have the most amount of respect for this guy. Gets injured in 2018. Remind me, Ashley, it was his tibia and fibia that he snapped on the field.
He almost lost his leg.
Almost loses his leg. He goes into surgery, gets sepsis, ends up having to have 17 surgeries. So now 2 years later, he finally gets to play his first down of football once again for the Washington football team. I mean, it's just a hard story to read, but yet it comes out positive.
I don't care what Alex Smith does the rest of the season. I don't care if he has 37 total passing yards, which
Yeah.
is what he had this week for
Yep.
the rest of the season. To me, he is the NFL comeback player of the year.
Oh, absolutely. I think I don't know who else you could put in that. Like, I literally can't think of anyone.
It's the same injury that Joe Theismann had, but
Yep.
a little bit worse, and he's coming back and playing like 2 years later. It's incredible, really.
It is. And, I think the coolest part was being able to watch his wife and kids sit in the stands and watch him play.
Yeah, his wife was in the stands
Yeah.
the whole time, just a little nervous, which I understand after, your husband or someone you care about goes through that experience. It's such a motivating testament to
Right.
his hard work. And, he even said at times he didn't know if he would come back from this injury, but he did it for 2 reasons. Because he said he wanted his kids to see what it looked like when you're faced with adversity, how to fight through, and how just not to quit. And if we get anything, we can learn from Alex Smith how to fight through any type of adversity, and how to just keep going no matter what it looks like.
Absolutely. But let's go ahead and move on to our last NFL topic for today. Saints versus Chargers last night. Saints take the win after a 17-point comeback, 30-27 over the Chargers.
Justin Herbert looked incredible again.
He did. Justin Herbert threw for 264, 20 for 34. I mean, strong outing for a quarterback. I think he only had no interceptions.
4
Excuse me.
touchdowns.
Yes,
You
correct.
just can't rattle the kid.
No, you can't.
He's got the second most passing touchdowns in the league at 4 when pressured. And it's always 3 straight weeks. They showed the graphic on the broadcast last night, but he's played Tom Brady, Drew Brees. That's 2 Super Bowl MVPs right there.
Yes.
And he's hanging with him. He looks great.
He looks
the part.
strong. Like, he looks like a real quarterback.
Looks
Like,
excellent.
there's some quarterbacks that kind of go out there. I'm trying to think of there's a young guy who played, I think he played, it wasn't the Chargers. It might have been the Chargers. I don't remember who it was. It was a younger quarterback who played, just didn't look like a quarterback out there. Kind of looked like a high school kid, to be honest with you. But Justin Herbert looks strong. Looks
Yeah.
like a real quarterback out there looking to throw the ball.
And he was just up against the wrong quarterback. Drew Brees knows how to win. His stat line, 33 for 47, not the best. 325 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But he basically led this comeback for the Saints. At one point before the half, it was 3-20. If I'm a Chargers fan, I might turn the game off because I'm like, oh, halftime, 3-20. We're winning this game. There's no need,
Right.
I need to watch something else. But Drew Brees said not so. So before they go into half, Drew Brees gets into the end zone. And in the fourth quarter, it's 13-20. Chargers still leading. at this time, I'm a little worried if I'm a Chargers fan.
Yeah, another strong statistical day for Drew, like she said, and yeah, it's three or four games this year that the Chargers have lost because they kind of took their foot off the gas with a big lead, and kind of got to think, well, is that what are we going to do to prevent that from happening again? How are we going to stay aggressive on offense? And that's really something that Anthony Lynn's going to have to figure out.
Oh, absolutely. Let me ask you this: who is your number one quarterback for a comeback? If you're down 6 points,
All time or currently?
Or who do we? Are you saying who do we want at the quarterback
who
position?
do you want? Who do you want in quarterback position?
Give me Mahomes.
You want Mahomes?
All time or current?
All time.
All time? Ooh.
All time.
See, that actually is
All
hard.
time.
That-
No.
Yeah, let's just do current.
Let's
yeah.
do
Okay,
yeah,
current.
current. I
Current,
want
give me
Patrick.
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson?
Yep.
That's pretty good. I like both of those.
I want Patrick.
I don't know who I would choose, to be honest with you. For the longest, for one, it would have been Dak. I think Dak's a strong player, but that's bias, 100%. I'll be honest with that. I'm trying to think who else I would want in that position.
There's so many
There's
quarterbacks.
so
You
many
have
that
Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers would
Drew
be Drew
Brees.
Brees. Those are kind of the quarterbacks.
Tom
that-
Brady. We can't forget.
I think
Tom
an easier
Brady.
question is, who do you not want in a fourth quarter comeback? And the
Baker
answer is Daniel
Mayfield.
Jones. Unfortunately, I love
What?
Daniel Jones, but the past two fourth quarter comeback attempts that he's had, he's blown both opportunities.
That's funny.
So
How do you feel about Lamar Jackson as your comeback quarterback?
Great quarterback.
love Lamar.
He'd be I think if it's a running position, then if it's a 4-yard run to the left side for a touchdown, yeah, I'm probably choosing Lamar Jackson for it. Anything else though, I don't know. I'd rather have, if it's anything 50 yards out, 60 yards out from a touchdown, I'd much rather have like an Aaron Rodgers or a Drew Brees or a Tom Brady that can slug it down the field.
Sure, because we've seen it already. We haven't seen Lamar be put in that situation yet.
That's
to
a
have
true
to try and do
statement
that.
too. And then back in the day, it was Tony Romo. Tony Romo was one of the
That's
best
true.
comeback quarterbacks.
But we're staying with current.
I know, that's the whole thing. That's why I said
I
all
don't.
the time. I was
What about
like,
Cam Newton? He's looking pretty good this year.
Cam
Cam
Newton
looks
is
strong.
looking really
There's
good this
so
year.
many quarterbacks. I don't know. I'm still gonna have to stick with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with my I think officially I'm going to choose Drew Brees.
Okay.
I think that's my comeback quarterback. All right, moving on. Big news in the basketball world. Ladies and gentlemen, LeBron James gets the 4th ring of his career.
What'd you say?
4th ring.
Who?
4th LeBron James.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to hear it again. It sounds so good.
I thought he was going to say JaVale McGee or something for the second.
LeBron James. That's right. I'm so happy that he got this ring. Well deserved. And it wasn't easy. Can you imagine? He stayed in the bubble. They stayed in the bubble for 90 days. 90 days inside of the bubble. Talk about focus, right? So LeBron James, he had 28 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, his 28th final triple-double. At this point, people are and he's finals MVP, of course. And at this point, people are saying that the MJ, LeBron James comparison debate should be over. There is an article comparing the two. I really hate the comparison because
I think it's two different people. Like, it's two different things.
it's two different people, but two different eras. So
Yeah.
if you grew up in the Jordan era, that's going to be your hero. For most people who's growing up in LeBron James, we got to witness everything he's done so far, so we can relate. So that's going to be our hero.
Right. Well, not only like hero, and you gotta understand. I think it's just two different times of basketball. Like on top of that, like Jordan played his day, where you had the Scottie Pippins, Dennis Rodman, all those guys. And then you have LeBron James in today's world, where the competition's probably a little bit harder. It's just a different world of basketball. New rules have come in, new regulations. I think the ball size is actually different as well. Those little things, in my opinion, add up.
Those were all brought up into the article as
Right.
well.
So that's why I just think I don't think the comparison is worth it.
And you know what really got me about LeBron? When I first was like, okay, he's my current favorite player. Find me, of course, now the game is getting to a level where you have bigger people doing different things. But I was like, find me a player who is his size, his height, and can do everything that he does. Bringing the ball down the court. We have a point forward because of LeBron James. Bring the ball down the court, hitting threes, jump shots. He's not just in the post. So that's really what sold me. But, this ring, back to the ring situation, it's well-deserved. The Lakers win the series in 6 games. They take it 4-2, beating the Heat 106-93 in the final game.
Yeah, and I think you kind of said it. The point forward was kind of invented by LeBron James. We've got Ben Simmons now, who's kind of that point forward. He's a point guard, but he's 6'10".
This guy's amazing, making new positions.
Giannis is kind of if you said who's close, Giannis to me is really the only thing close, and Giannis to me doesn't have the out deep shooting ability yet. Granted,
and that's the last few years, but before it was
LeBron and nobody else.
Exactly.
And I think to your point, Jeff, it is kind of two different comparisons because Jordan played in an era that was much more physical, but to be fair, like LeBron is playing against much better competition.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you have to look at like what Bree said, greatest of their respective eras, just to keep things civil because as we know they will break out and not be civil.
Someone from down the hall is probably listening, waiting to jump in this conversation.
Absolutely, I feel like a lot of that comes from us being more involved in the sports world and being involved in sports, announcing or covering sports. Like we can separate the two eras. Some people only see the NBA as a league. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move on quickly. Bree, I'm sorry to do this to you, but WNBA, they also finished their finals.
Yeah, you're fine. Seattle Storm, they swept Las Vegas Aces in 3 games because it's best out of 5 for the WNBA.
Right.
Final score, 56, Aces, Storm, 92. Breanna Stewart is the Finals MVP, 26 points, but of course they're led by Sue Bird. This is their 2nd title in 3 years.
That's pretty impressive.
Dominant.
Yeah.
I mean, coming in clutch, you want to talk about that? And then, forgive me for not knowing the answer to this. She also had her 4th ring. Which one? There was another person.
Sue Bird.
Correct.
She also had her 4th ring, and Ashton was actually talking earlier about LeBron and Sue Bird.
Yeah, both of them getting their 4th ring in their 17th year.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's pretty impressive.
Very impressive, and those are just great veterans, people who know how to lead on and off the court.
Absolutely.
So, last topic of the day is Major League Baseball postseason has started and has kind of kicked off. The National League Championship Series, both AL and NL, have already started. Houston versus Tampa in the American League Championship game. As of right now, Tampa Bay leads 2-0. It has been kind of an interesting series to watch, but Houston is such a dominant team. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a comeback for that. But right now, Braves versus Dodgers is kind of the one to watch. Braves lead the series 1-0. Early home run by Freeman last night. Austin Riley had a home run. And now Kershaw's not starting tomorrow. So it's going to be something super interesting to watch for the rest of this week.
Yeah, but just to mention real quick, these 4 teams, they got here intentionally. Between the 4 teams, they've had 34 trades, trading and making sure they had the right player that was going to take them far in the playoffs.
Well, and that's going to have to wrap it up here for us in the studio for 91.9. Ashton, thank you so much for bringing us so much of your joy today.
I'm glad you didn't make me talk baseball because my answer was always going to be I defer to Jeff.
Bree, always a pleasure to have you, and we will be back next week on Crunch Time. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here at 91.9 Studios.